Welcome to the podcast. My name is Patrick Nissom. Across me is Jacob. What it do, man?
I am here.
All right. We have a very fitting guest for October. This is Matt Dorado. Matt Dorado, during the day, is a marketing guru for the LA Opera. And at night, he transforms like a werewolf into a haunt aficionado and producer. So we actually had the opportunity to meet Matt last year when we were searching for a haunt experience to occupy our space here at Think Tank Gallery. And we ended up with Drunken Devil, which was a production that brought in a haunted house experience. And we also assisted in creating a New Orleans-ish lounge in our project room area, which is kind of our smaller side of the gallery. And we had a really great time. We learned a ton, as did he, as it was his first haunt experience. And since then, it's been really amazing to see how he's grown and how he's developed as a producer in the haunt scene.
Mm-hmm. And so this episode in particular has some cool stuff to pick up. If you are looking to produce your own events, you have some cool ideas, maybe you've helped out on a couple other people's events or just, some major stuff. Matt was someone who took those experiences and built his own kind of company from it. And so he has a show coming up soon, which we'll link to in wherever you found this, which is like the Witch's Brew or something like that, which is a one-night haunt event that is his new kind of calling card. In particular, this episode, I think you'll pick up a lot on like defining horror theater, or like talking about what does it mean to be immersive and how you can create an immersive experience. I think Matt has a really good sense of how to kind of control the audience flow at a bar, or like control the audience's flow of fun, which is something really hard to pick up on as a director, especially when you have to run through all the red tape and all the permitting bullshit that Matt always has to go through. He's pretty smart in that regard. I think that another big thing that Matt's gone through, and he was our very first guest on this podcast, and so we got to have a lot of these kinds of conversations where we've related to him, is that he's had to change his idea a lot from its original inception, what he thought it was going to be, to what it is now, which is in his mind ultimately better. And I think when when people go to his events, they're going to notice that I'm choking. Anyway, and then a last thing that he talks about is working for the LA Opera versus running his own ship, and the differences there, being a part of one big team that is kind of firmly established and has been going since before you got there. And if he ends up leaving, we'll probably continue going after that, and then having to run every single aspect of your company and being the one that's ultimately in charge. It's a big responsibility, and I think Matt has a lot of insights to share on that.
Yeah, and I loved hearing about his first haunt experience that he created in college. I thought that
Christian college.
Yeah, I thought that
awesome.
was a really cool little anecdote there. Event of the week, man.
Another one. This is going out in the same batch.
Oof.
And we have Trap House come. It's haunt season, as you'll know in this conversation with Matt.
What's Trap House, man?
Trap House is our kind of like sequel kind of thing to Break Bread, where we are taking over the space, building a functional art installation that everyone can kind of like be a part of, putting an art show together with a bunch of dope art, and then popping up in the lounge a bunch of events every night. And we have all different producers coming in and taking over our lounge to put their kind of like director's cut spin on whatever our show is. And one of the people I'm most excited about, who's been very in-depth in his conversations with us on what he's producing here, is Abel, who's a friend of Matt's, from Serial Killer Speed Dating. And what Serial Killer Speed Dating is, if you weren't at Scare LA or any of the other places that he's shown up, is he gets a group of people, 12 single straight folks or a bunch of people for networking. He does gay night, lesbian night, and people come through and they do actual speed dating. However, 2 of the people are planted as actors. He's doing a unique spin on it for this, so it might not be exactly the same, but the fun part is at the end of the dating period, you have to vote on who you think was the serial killer. And there's other things that are kind of thrown in, some performance elements and drinks and things like this, but it's pretty fun because if you get voted most likely to be a serial killer and you're not, you get a pretty shitty prize. So look out for that.
You also have your ego just decimated.
I think that it's very ego decimating as a prize too, what you end up getting. So
yeah, and you can find speed dating anywhere in Los Angeles where you're going to have actors who are going to be there, but they're going to be actual actors off duty. These actors are on duty and will be very much giving you the hint that they could be serial killers. I wish he had a screening process so that he could find people who like might very well be serial killers, but they're not actors, so that we can really mix it up. And
maybe that's our trick this time around. You might actually get killed. It's haunt season. You never know.
That's true. Yeah, it's 'tis the season to be murdered in a gallery, I guess.
So hit up www.traphouse.la, and if it's 2016, so skip the www because we ain't fools no more.
Yeah. Be efficient.
And that's it. So enjoy this podcast with Matt Dorado. Cool.
Cool.
All right, sweet. So we are sitting here on our podcast, which has not yet been named and will be by the time this is released, with our good friend Matt Dorado. And my name is Jacob Patterson. I'm one of the directors of Think Tank, and I'm sitting here with my partner Patrick Nissim.
What's good?
Who is another of the directors at Think Tank, the two of us. So we brought Matt into the studio today. We've worked with him a couple times, once on a show that we produced here, or that Matt produced here, and have coordinated things with him along the lines as he's gone through doing shows at Super Chief and other spaces. And he's got a new show that he's planning in October for Halloween. And so we just wanted to welcome him in and talk to him about, some of the things he's been working on.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
For sure.
Yeah. So I was looking at your website before you came in here, drunkendevil.com. Is that it?
TheDrunkenDevil.com, yeah.
Cool. And, I was reading over the, your description of what your company is, and you describe it as a event and entertainment company that kind of exists in the realms of horror theater, haunted houses, immersive bar experiences, new media, and things like that. So how would you describe that to someone who's unfamiliar with what those things are?
Basically, what it's turned into now is horror-infused nightlife. And that's like the weirdest kind of phrase you could ever hear. But anything from haunted houses, your traditional haunted houses, always including a bar, always including some element of that, to, I guess horror-themed parties. Our last one that we did that I'm sure we'll talk about was, a horror-infused disco party in a warehouse. And so that's as simple as you can take it. You really have to experience it, but if you could think of like a horror film mixed with a party, that's exactly what it would be.
For me, like a horror-induced nightlife is just like Hollywood. Like going into a club in Hollywood is just horrifying enough to me. Like it's insane to me how intimidated I am by club culture at this point in my life.
Oh, absolutely.
So with this disco party, for example, can you give me some of the meat and potatoes of what the differentiators are about an event like this?
Yeah. I think I could probably give a little bit of backstory into where,
Please.
if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
A few months ago, around February, March, I met a couple of people, now my good friends, that sort of thrust me into the nightlife, like the underground nightlife world here in LA.
Are you able to disclose who those people are?
Yeah, there's Chris Bowen, who's a DJ. He does stuff at Precinct. He worked with his partner Victor Rodriguez. They own they are Critter Control, and they've done parties like Bears in Space at Akbar. They used to do Shits and Giggles, which is now defunct, unfortunately. Courtney Nichols, who started Disco Dining Club. And those are sort of the two big ones, I would say, that have really sort of brought me into the fold and introduced me to a lot of great parties going around in LA. Whether they're at bars, whether they're at secret locations that you don't know about, whether it's that 3 a.m. warehouse party that you go to after the club is closed. So I got really into that, and meeting these people and sort of going to these events, I realized that this is something that I'm interested in now. But how could I put my own spin on it, and how can I make it unique and still staying true to who I am as a creator? And then I just sort of did it.
And are you from LA?
I am, yeah.
And so you kind of came up with these people and they started producing their own stuff? Like, how'd you come across the underground production scene in LA?
I went to Precinct for a party, and then I met Chris, and then we went to someone's house for an after party. then I met a bunch of people, and then sort of ever since I've just been going to parties with them.
Cool. So
it's crazy how fast it happened.
What was it? What characteristics that these events had? What sort of characteristics really pulled you in to say, I want to be a part of this? This is something I want to sink my money and time into.
I think it's just that these are spaces that were created to encourage sort of letting yourself loose a little bit and sort of accepting yourself and who you are and just being yourself in these spaces where you're allowed to dance. That's really important to me, and that's something that I never was a part of, I guess. And so going to one of these parties, I was just sort of instantly freed of a lot of stresses that have been building over the past year. And of course, it's weird to sort of put that side by side with like horror theater. But that's what we did for the disco party, and it was just a safe space for people to be, dress up weird if they wanted to, drink as much as they wanted to, dance as much as they wanted to with this weird horror edge, and somehow it worked.
I mean, it is a very easy form of escapism.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty theatrical. Do you have a background in theater?
I do. I graduated with a degree in producing and directing theater.
Okay, cool. From where?
From Westmont College. Tiny little Christian liberal arts school, which is even more ironic. Wow. Landing where I am today.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. You see a lot of nuns and horror shit. So
that's true. And nuns are scary.
Yeah.
Nuns and priests are scary.
Yeah, especially if you've been bad. They will ruin your fucking life.
Yeah, I see a lot of people. I went to Christian school for like 9 years or something like that. And I see a lot of people in this industry who have a background in that. Like, we have a painter that we work with all the time named Human, Alison Torneros, and she went to Catholic school. We work with another guy, Grant Yoshino, who runs a podcast called The Artist Decoded. He went to Christian school forever. It's weird. You run into a lot of people who have these like intense religious backgrounds and find their way into some crazy other place. Like, I can't even tell my mom half the shit that I'm up to every day.
Yeah. That might be a sort of a root of it, because a lot of it, I mean, it wasn't all bad, and I can't, going on a brief tangent here, it wasn't all bad, but there's a lot about that where you have to sort of suppress yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'd say maybe that's why everyone ends up the way we do.
So what was your first event? Like, in the timeline of you as an event producer, what was your first event? What did it look like? What would the flyer have read? In
like pre-Drunken Devil?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Like, going into you in your evolution as an event producer.
Yeah, like the first one that you were kind of like, you had some accountability, like you were in charge of something.
I did a small haunted house in my dorm, my college dorm, my sophomore year. And I don't know how I got away with half the shit I did.
I could see in your eyes there's guilty pleasure. Like,
it was so great. It was so great. So it was this little haunted house, and it started in the basement of my dorm. And it was like this slaughterhouse area, and one of my guys bought like raw meat, like real raw meat, and hung it up.
Like big slabs.
Big slabs of
like
meat.
Rocky shit.
Yeah, it was disgusting, and it smelled, and it was so good, and it was just like this really gross. We threw blood all over the wall. Again, I had no idea how we got away
real
with
blood?
it. No, I wish.
Did the dorms know about this?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Well, the dorms helped me put it on. Everyone in my dorm.
I would freak the fuck out if I was an RA and I just walked into that.
Our RA was in that section scaring people.
That's awesome.
He was into it. Everyone got into it. And then you would walk up, and then they were in this like asylum place, and they'd like walk through this girl, like, picking out guts from this patient, and then you went into the bathrooms, and there was shit on the wall. Like, it wasn't real shit.
Right.
But there was like shit
if it
on
was
the
real
wall.
meat, we just gotta ask. Real shit, real blood.
It couldn't be that consistent. But then like they'd walk through like soiled like underwear, and it was this weird, like bizarre, nasty little haunted house, but we did it for like $150, and we just had fun.
That's awesome.
And then that was 2010, and then I did another one, and the next year was when everybody started to freak the fuck out. I'm like, oh, Halloween is evil, da-da-da-da-da. So, and then I stopped doing it.
Damn, that's crazy though. 2010, that was your first, and you were in college at that point?
I was a sophomore, yeah.
And this is at your like hyper Christian college, right?
Yeah. It's so nuts. 2010 was not that long ago. That was like
I know,
6 years ago.
6 years
You've come
ago.
so far in that amount of time. Like, I keep forgetting that you're a young cat that
I just turned 25.
Yeah, it's nuts. You're doing so much shit already by 25. That's awesome. One of our goals with this podcast is to be like, so what would you tell yourself when you were 20? Like,
there's
so
much.
long ago.
There's so
what would you have
much.
told yourself? And you're like, that was only 5 years ago.
But there's still so much.
Yeah. You've done a lot of shit since then. So
yeah.
So what was your role in that production? Like, did you come up with the whole thing? Or?
I came up with the whole thing and I organized it. And obviously there were people working with me to execute it. But that was where I sort of had my first producer role in working with, the equivalent of law enforcement today was administration. So making sure that everything was safe, making sure that, fire codes were up to speed, up to standard. And
fuck the FDA. They didn't get involved at all.
Yeah, they didn't. I didn't tell about the meat or any of the shit. But, sort of creatively producing it, but also and that was my first foray into actual event, theatrical production, organization, and directing.
And did that spark something in you? Like after you had completed that?
Oh, yeah.
Were you like, wait a minute, this is
what I want to do, yeah. And I've always wanted to direct. I wanted to direct film. And I still, have dabbled in that, but not to the extent as of this. There's just something about running live entertainment and like a theatrical production that really gets me going.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic too. Is we have another friend who runs a podcast called No Proscenium. Do you know,
I know
of
them,
it?
yeah.
Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite things is he's kind of expanding into immersive entertainment in general. He's avoiding video games, but he is tapping into VR. And it seems like right now immersive, experiential theater or experiential art in general is kind of like a buzzword, and people are kind of trying to like hold it down and define what it actually is.
Yeah.
And you talk about immersive bar experiences or experiential horror events. Like how do you kind of differentiate from theater or a haunted house? Or how do you tie all that into to how you describe the words experiential or immersive in your entertainment?
I think immersive, when it boils down to something, it really boils down to like leaving this world and moving into something else. And so there's so many different definitions. Like a haunted house could be something like an immersive experience where you're, sort of like alone or blackout. A haunted house to me is what I did last year, which is a traditional like maze type event. But I think immersive really is just sort of taking an audience member out of their life for just a second and putting them somewhere else. And so one of the goals of Drunken Devil is to sort of bring back that celebratory aspect of life and theater that I think we've lost a little bit. And so, alcohol in a bar and curated drinks is obviously a big component of celebrating. So if there was a way to take people out of their life and drop them in an immersive bar, but not like, a bar that you'd see around town, like a pop-up bar or something like that. I think that's what I'm trying to do.
Cool.
Just place them in a theatrical scene, in a theatrical moment, in a different world. And shove drinks in their face.
And so it's that same kind of feeling of why people who love escapism love going to the movies. That's that same draw for you, where you're like, I know I'll be in film at some point.
Yeah.
That same form of escapism where you can kind of like...
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump forward a little bit, because I want to touch on your experience with Alone and working with those guys.
Yeah.
Because obviously their productions, aside from being critically acclaimed, are just very comprehensive. I mean, they've got security cameras. They're, I know the people who run the show there, I mean, they've been producers on big commercials. They're no stranger to production and coordination and ensuring that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So
yeah, and for our audience, Patrick, can you explain, we hosted an Alone show at Think Tank. Can you explain what Alone is to those who don't know?
Sure. So Alone is kind of in the same bloodline of what we've been talking about, as far as just kind of an immersive, haunted experience, often ending in some sort of bar experience, at least as far as I've seen.
I think it was this one here.
Yeah, the one that we had here, they would go through a really, really elaborate mentally strenuous kind of maze of sorts, in which they had to really challenge themselves mentally to carry on with the task of just simply getting through this maze, while there was just a lot of very intense physical interaction. Some people were getting shoved and pushed against the walls. I mean, there's different intensities as far as Alone has, created in their experiences, but it's just a very one-of-a-kind, unique, quote unquote existential haunted experience
that you go through alone.
What's that?
That you go through alone.
That you go through alone, right? And so Matt was a part of the production team. He was one of the people helping out to produce the event. And the next year we had him here. So now that you're sitting across from us, I'm curious, what sort of experiences and knowledge did you pull from those guys in that production, and how did you carry those things over to what you did the next year?
And how'd you find them in the first place?
Well, I didn't. I worked with Alone for like 3 days, so it wasn't as extensive. But I think I know Lawrence, and I met Lawrence before that, and so he sort of. I was unemployed at the time, and he, took me on for
Lawrence
a couple
Lewis
days.
is one of the producers that came up with it.
Yeah. So he actually reached out to me when Drunken Devil was under a different name. It was called Black Magic Creative Arts, and it was the dumbest name.
That's a cool name.
It's everyone uses Black Magic, and it was BLKMGC, so it was like
that's pretty long.
Yeah, super like hip.
Sounds like a cult.
Yeah, take out all the vowels and
super hip.
Yeah. It's like a app and a cult mixed
together.
together.
Exactly. So I changed that real quick. But they reached out to me because we had this cool, like, sort of occultish aesthetic going on. And then I met Lawrence, and we really hit it off because, we both love film. He's a film producer. And we both like these sort of horror experiences. And so we just sort of started talking and hanging out, and then I helped him out a little bit with Alone. But even in those few days that I was working with them, I learned just how much of a process doing something to that scale is.
What phase did you come in of the operation? Like how many days before opening, for example?
I mean, I think it was towards the beginning when we were just loading everything in, and they hadn't, like, we went to go pick up the big wall they brought in, and we brought up the giant church pew, and there were a lot of weird elements that I helped bring in, mainly like actually bringing in, and I helped, stage manager set up cameras, but that was an interesting experience to me because I didn't know what the fuck they were building, because it was curtains and it was chairs and weird lighting situations, and where everything in my experience has been more like sets, actual sets with flats and props, and theirs was a lot more ambiguous and definitely more ambient, I think, and they did a lot with lights and strobes and fog.
You can say at the beginning of their setup was just a nightmare. It was so messy.
It was
like,
crazy.
What the hell is this going to become?
It was really crazy.
Yeah.
But they did some really cool shit with all of that, and it was definitely more of the personal experience, and sort of you had to go through Alone, so you sort of everyone had a different experience. Where I think haunted houses are more of a group experience, but I just learned about the difference, and I learned about all of the stresses of dealing with the ABC and getting your liquor license and making sure everything is set up. And that, I learned that after, and I was talking to him, especially when I brought up that I wanted to have a liquor license next year.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that too. I'm curious though, why, you say these things like, you want people to be able to escape and come and just like get weird and dance their ass off like they did at your last event at Super Chief, and come in costume or not or whatever. So what was it for you that made you decide that you didn't want to do an experience that people walk through alone, but you wanted people to be able to go through it as a group? Like, what drew you to that concept?
Well, I have a very fickle imagination, and I like certain things when I like them. So it was sort of like, I had just landed back in LA, and I worked on Alone, and I went to a bunch of different haunted houses because I didn't have one of my own. And then over the course of the following year, I was getting more and more interested in this sort of traditional haunted house, because that's what I grew up on. That's what I went to when I was really young, and that's what got me started on Halloween, I guess. And so I sort of built up to that, and I wanted this to be, the haunted house that we had last October here is, I won't do that again for a long time, because it wasn't at the end of the day, it wasn't I didn't get the satisfaction that I wanted from an event from there.
Can you say why?
I don't know. It was a lot of work, and I learned a lot, but there was something about, I just wasn't satisfied with the product that I created. And there were a lot of factors to that. I didn't budget accordingly. There were a lot of costs that came up that, cut into other parts of the budget. There was a lot that I didn't plan for it just because it was my first time and I had no idea what the fuck was going to happen. But even if it had gone like to a T and it was super successful, I don't think it would have satisfied the feeling that I had. I wanted to create something completely unique and completely fun, I guess. And I don't think maybe it just wasn't fun for me. People seem to have fun. But I don't know. I don't know exactly how to express this, and like I can't put a finger on it. But I just wasn't happy.
Yeah, so you're like aiming at that. You're aiming at that fun factor, and that's a good reason why you'd want people to be able to come through in groups.
Yeah.
And then when it was all said and done, there were so many distractions with the production that you lost it in a couple places. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I was a complete stream of consciousness, but and it ended in the bar. And the bar was a success, I think. It was a lot of fun. We had the burlesque shows. We had the different cocktails that were available. And I think that I should have focused more on that because that's where I think people had a better response to that bar at the end, like this themed bar. And I wanted to take that and expand upon it, but still have elements of like a haunted house, this haunted attraction, horror experience. And so that's where I sort of came up with these new party ideas.
Yeah. And so the next one that you did after this event here at Think Tank was like an interim party at Super Chief.
Well, we did one before, actually.
Oh, didn't you do something at Art Walk or something like that?
We did something at Redline.
Okay.
It was a burlesque and magic show.
Cool.
And it was just straight up performance, very simple. And that was good, and we had a good response to that. A lot of new audience members came to that. Excuse me. And that's where sort of this performance element came in to what we do, because we have these parties, and there's a performance element to it, and then the dance. So I think I took the bar experience of the haunted house, and I took this more performance theatrical experience from this event. It was called Villains and Vixens. And then I meshed those two together for the event at Super Chief, and it was so great, so successful, so fun. Yeah,
I didn't get to go to that one. What was that like? I really wanted to go and I couldn't make it.
It was a Studio 54 in hell themed party.
Studio 54 was in hell, first of all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was just bringing that back. But people walked in through the back gate of Super Chief, so into this parking lot, and the box trucks were open, and we had tarot card readers.
That's cool.
And then our bar was there, and people, we had their alley that connected, and we had these cool like horror installations with, candles and skeletons and fog, and that was sort of like a little scare zone. We had monsters, people dressed up as creatures, and then they would walk into the gallery itself, and it was the dance floor. That really rad setup for what was that show? It was the beauty shop.
Yeah.
So they had
Pearl's. It was a swoon show. Pearl's Beauty Shop, I think, is what it was called.
Yeah. So they had the stage already set up, and that's where our burlesque and our magic happened. And we also, one of my burlesque girls was like, "Hey, I do aerial. Do you want me to do aerial?" I was like, "Of course, I want you to do aerial." So she like hooked up a hoop to the ceiling, to one of the rafters on the ceiling, and she did this show. And then my DJ played like this all vinyl set of disco, and it was just fantastic. It was so good.
That's so tight.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's people who are specifically listening to this episode in an effort to kind of get a hold of how you create your process for, pushing an event like this and getting it off the ground. So is there any way you can sort of distill your mindset when you're approaching these events as far as what elements you need to consider when building up a production?
Yeah. I mean, I could break it down into everything. First, there's the venue, and that's, one of the most important things. How many people can it hold? Where is it? And I've started to care less about where it is, as long as it's a cool spot. I mean, Super Chief is...
Skid Row.
It's Skid Row.
Yeah.
And still people showed up, and it was fantastic.
Do you already have an idea in mind before you approach a venue?
Yes. I want it to be open. I want it to have a warehouse vibe. I want it to have, a couple points of exit just, for security reasons. But I think open and big enough to fit a bunch of people is mainly what I go for. Better if it's a space that has held creative events before, obviously, because then they know what's up. So it's picking the right venue, developing a branding campaign and a marketing campaign, which I'm still learning how to do with very little funds, because it can be tough, especially if you don't have a huge, budget for marketing and advertising. You have to really be creative, use a lot of social media, use a lot of press. So there's that aspect to it, and even finding people, your friends that have, a big following on Instagram, a big following on Twitter, like reaching out to those people. Then there's programming, like what kind of content am I going to have? In terms of set, am I going to have crazy installations? Am I going to have more of a minimalist approach to how we set up and design and decorate everything? Who's my talent? Who am I going to be booking? What are their normal rates? How do I work them down? What kind of perks can I get in terms of getting them? So we had a couple of performers that normally perform for a higher rate, but as soon as they hear disco party in hell, they're like, what is that? And I say, yeah, so it's this. And, give them, a couple extra tickets, give them parking, give them access to the bar, and they're good to go. Sort of learning how to negotiate that, talking to sponsors. Who are they? How do we get them there? What kind of branding are they going to have at the event? This year we had Peroni as one of our big sponsors. Cool. And so we had everything from branded napkins, branded cups, the beer, and then I guess sort of, flow, night of flow, set up, tear down. So there's a lot of elements. I mean, obviously event planning has a lot of elements, but then I think once you take this extra step of adding theatricality or performance into it, set design, it becomes a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm curious too, because, speaking of Alone, you come in on, day 4 or whatever it is that you came in and started helping them, and you're like, okay, they're hanging a bunch of like duvetine from wires that they're stapling into the ceiling. All right, they're bringing this big ass pew up the stairs because it won't fit in the elevator. All right, I get that. There's a bunch of lights over here and some weird speaker things, but I can't tell what the fuck it is they're doing. Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of with those guys, they don't even know yet until they start to get through the process, because they don't want to define it too much, because some idea might present itself that they hadn't noticed. And I noticed you were talking about the same thing. You were like, we walked into Super Chief and we put these tarot card readers in the back of trucks, which were broken down in the parking lot back there, right? They couldn't move it because they had some problem with their gas line or something. We know that because we tried to use that truck from out on Broadway and it didn't work out very well. So I wonder how much of that is, like, I asked you, how much of the idea is developed before you approach the venue, and then once you get there, do you change it once you arrive, or like how do you decide what immersive elements you're going to introduce based on the venue?
Yeah, well, for instance, they have this, Super Chief has a bar and it's inside, and we were going to move the bar out, and our DJ was going to be up at the top, and then we realized about 2 hours before the event that the bar doesn't fit through the doors.
Oh my god.
And so I was freaking the fuck out. And everyone's like, just use this fold-out table and put a black drape over it. And I looked at it, and it was like an 8-foot table. It's like, no fucking way. I'm not going to have like an 8-foot plastic table as, my bar. It's just not going to happen. So then I go into the back room, and they fortunately had this like broken down like skate ramp. So we pulled the skate ramp out, and we used that as the bar. We used the main bar. We moved it to the other side. So the DJ was there, and that made it so much easier. The flow was so much smoother. Was that me?
I don't know.
Hope not. It just flowed so much better. The bar looked really cool, so it had this graffiti on it, and we decked it out with like skeletons and candelabras and ivy, and it looked really sort of arcane and mystical and creepy. And then we had more room in the alleyway, so we put all of our skeletons and all of our, fake candles, and so it looked like the pathway to hell. Cool. And our red lights there. So it worked out much better, sort of having to figure out little elements like that. Sometimes those make the biggest difference.
Yeah. And so as far as you're planning for, future things coming up and having ideas, at least half-baked that are ready to go, do you have any plans for like whatever the next event or something you would like to do at some point in the future that you're excited about? Maybe something other than just a party or, film productions, or what's in the pipeline for you?
I think the biggest thing is perfecting the party right now. Because, I do have my day job, and that gets crazy. But sort of making sure that these parties go smoothly and we can expand them to get more people there, I think we'll probably keep doing that. My goal is to eventually have these parties at multiple locations around the country.
Cool.
You know, a couple times a month, do them internationally even. I don't know what kind of market would be out there for a horror party, but I'm sure there is one. You know, can you just see something like crazy, like underground London horror thing? I think that would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some New Orleans shit. I want to get over there. But I think developing these parties and bringing in more interactive elements and bringing in other elements of, like, we want to do food for Halloween. We want to have, you know, food sponsors come in and, you know, provide dining options for guests. And we want to bring in, like, projection installations where people can interact with, you know, these dancing images on sheets. And we want to bring in more like higher level sponsors and have different activations for them. So eventually it turns into like a little mini, like Hauntchella, I guess, like a little mini
like
festival.
That's very cool.
So that's the goal right now. So focusing all the energy and all the money on that and developing that.
So for a young buck who's excited about trying to throw their own Halloween event and to try to get on your level, sponsorships is always such an important key for a lot of these folks, because especially if you don't have a whole lot of startup capital, you've got a concept that's killer, and you've got access to talent that's also killer, and you've got access to resources, whether that be set builders, whether that be the sets themselves, but you don't have the capital. What sort of information can you provide people who are interested in throwing, whether it be Halloween events or any events in general, as far as best practices for acquiring sponsorships?
Oh God, I don't know, because it just, for me, it just sort of I just sort of looked it up how to do it, and you just have to go after these people. And the other day I was looking at these sponsorship decks that I made when I was in college, and I had no idea what I was writing. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what the word value necessarily meant to a sponsor. That's why I didn't get any. But I think the most important thing is to really sort of identify who you're looking to go after. If I had known that last year, I think I would have been much more successful in acquiring higher level sponsors. But just sort of knowing your target audience, knowing what they do, being in tune with what they do as a consumer, what products they go after, and searching after that is really important. But you can't really learn how to acquire sponsors. You just have to think of it as, what do I want? Do I want product? Do I want cash? Those are like the two options that you have. Or do you want media exposure? I guess that's a product. And sort of just going for it, you know, putting your idea on paper, have someone read over it, make sure that it looks like something to pitch, like a good pitch deck, and just send it out and be confident in your product. I think is something that's really important that I wasn't necessarily. I hope that answers the question. I don't know.
Well,
I just did it.
Well, let's try this. Let's look at the Peroni sponsorship, for example. So first question is was that in kind, or did they put down money, or was there both?
That was just in kind product.
Cool. So in kind, for people who aren't familiar, is product donation. So if I hit up Peroni, they say we'll be able to deliver in kind. They're delivering us their product, which is beer. So in that case, did you shoot them a sponsor deck? Did you kind of target any sort of specific marketing initiatives that they had, or did you just say, hey, look, this is a really cool idea, we think that you're a hip brand? Like, you know, what was your approach?
I did that. Luckily for me, my day job is in partnerships and sponsorships, and so I go to a lot of events where potential sponsors are, and that's something else, like actually going out to specific events where there's a host of sponsors and different, you know, if there's a lot of liquor brands, go there, find the reps, talk to them. I was at an event on Saturday and I talked to a Tito's rep, so I'm hoping to reach out to them for Halloween. Tito's vodka.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Yes, the best vodka on the market, if you're listening.
It's really good.
Matt Dorado says. The Drunken Devil preferred.
Yeah, the Drunken Devil signature
Tito's.
of approval. Yeah, Tito's.
So I don't remember what I was talking about.
They're honing in on Peroni.
Oh yeah, so I went to a Timeout event. That was their bar awards down at the Ace Hotel, and I just met the guy from Peroni, and we just sort of hit it off, and we started talking, and I said, hey, I have this really cool disco party in a Skid Row art gallery warehouse. And that was enough to sort of...
Which is usually a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have confidence in your product...
Yeah, for sure.
And spin it as something really cool. And then, of course, I had to go through the motions of sending him a pitch deck. What exactly was he going to receive? And honestly, for bigger brands like that aren't necessarily local, they have a lot of shit to give away. Mm-hmm. And sort of taking advantage of finding the right person, being at the right place at the right time, which is a product of going out and seeking that.
You got to invite us to some of this shit, man.
No, I will. I just went for work, but next time.
Yeah, next time there's a timeout sponsored giveaway free shit party. Invite us to that one.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a good name for a party, actually, a networking event called Sponsors Giveaway Free Shit.
Yeah.
This podcast tentatively sponsored by Tito's.
Timeout magazine.
Timeout.
Yeah, that's a good point I want to bring up though, because you come from a position where you've been privileged to know when these events are coming up, because that's one of the hardest things. Is like we need to rent our venue out. How do we find out where these places are to rent our venue? That's very difficult. And you come across products like or services like HubSpot where you realize that there's places to find those people. And now you're telling me there's these events that you can go to hosted by someone like Time Out Magazine where sponsors are there and they're there to meet people like you, or at least it's a networking event to meet other people in the industry. And another place that you've been privileged to kind of come from is your day job, which is at the LA Opera, working for a couple years now, it sounds like, on doing advertising, marketing, sponsorships, partnerships, things like that. So how'd you get into that, and how do you feel like you've been able to kind of bring that over to what your side hustle, which someday will become your main hustle, of what you're doing with Drunken Devil?
Well, it all started a long time ago. Actually, when I was in the same phase of unemployment when I was working for a loan. I was working at Nordstrom and I quit because I hate retail.
Yeah, I worked at Macy's. Fuck.
It was the
I worked
worst.
at Urban Outfitters. Fuck Urban Outfitters to hell.
Terrible.
Everybody shout out their least favorite retailer.
Right now, go. It's terrible.
Yeah, we'll do it off air in case they want to sponsor our podcast.
Everyone tweet us the fucking retailer you hate.
Yeah, exactly.
So I quit that, and I wasn't working, and I was getting desperate because obviously there's this thing called rent, and you got to pay it.
Yeah.
So I reached out to a friend who said there's an opening at LA Magazine. Go interview. And so I applied. I just wrote a resume. I spunked up my resume. I made it really cool, and I interviewed with them, and the publisher loved me. And we still work with them at the Opera. I didn't get the job. I had no publishing experience, but the publisher, Erica, referred me to Diane, who's my current boss at LA Opera, because I had a temporary opening for like a marketing assistant, sort of helping around the office, doing any sort of admin work. And I got there and I just sort of took advantage of where I was. It's at the fucking Opera, like how, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So
it's a true LA story, origin story.
Yeah, exactly. And I was there for 2 months as a temp, and then the marketing coordinator left, and then I told the director of marketing at the time, hey, do you want to bring me on full-time? I'm down. And I got promoted to full-time marketing coordinator. And then I just grew a lot of the programs there, a young professionals group. It's called ARIA. It was smaller, and I've sort of built that up. We have a lot of different marketing programs and initiatives to try and get more subscribers, followers, and I've sort of helped to grow those. And then I'm really interested in, cross promotions with different organizations, developing partnerships, acquiring sponsorships for the company, and somehow that works with these events. And I just really love marketing events, different activations. LA Opera has been at the Taste of LA, at LA Times. We've been at the Pier, Santa Monica Pier, doing an activation there. We were at Night on Broadway with Art Walk doing an activation there. And I'm all about getting the word out, not just through like direct mail or something like that, or emails. I want to actually get on the ground floor. And I think opera is actually something that's extremely accessible, but a lot of people have some really unfortunately accurate stereotypes about what opera is. And I'm trying to change that. And I think LA Opera is also trying to change that, making it more accessible to everyone, young people, people that have never been before. And so that's sort of what I do, working towards that mission. It's a cool place to be.
Can you give me some insight as to your favorite initiative that you've put forth, like your baby, like the thing you hang your hat on at LA Opera?
Yeah, it's the Young Professionals group. It's the ARIA group. When I started, it was a program where people between the ages of 21 and 35 could go to an after party after select shows. And the after parties were at, like Beverly Hills lobbies, hotel lobbies, or, nice restaurants around town. And I kind of got sick of that a little bit, and I wanted to change it and have it be something a little bit more exciting. So when I first started with ARIA, we did events at different restaurants like Pez Cantina, Soleto, which is now gone, unfortunately. But then we did another one at the Ace Hotel for their Halloween party. We did one at Petty Cash in the Arts District that is also no longer there. And then we did another one at Pro and Proper, which is just down the street. And I've sort of expanded these. I guess I just like parties.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the common thread here.
They were just, they were networking little activities after the opera where you could have, a glass of champagne, a glass of wine, and mingle with your fellow opera goers. And then I came around, and at Pro and Proper, they were giving out like moonshine hurricanes. And there was, a line for the crab or the lobster mac and cheese. And it was just like disco music was playing. And it was just like the whole top floor of the restaurant was converted into this giant party for these young professionals. And a lot of people were loosening their ties. And everyone was just sort of hanging out and getting to know each other. And it's really grown from a group of like mild-mannered, like, we love opera, this is fun, I'm glad that there are young people, to like a full-blown like social club. Cool. And as we keep going and expand, I'm trying to do things in different locations. I want to throw parties at warehouses or at galleries or other places and get it a little bit more edgy, quote unquote, and out there in the downtown LA scene.
Bring them on, man. We'd love to have that LA Opera here. It'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So
let's do it.
So another question: where the fuck have our invites been?
Time out parties.
Do you think I don't want to get fucked up and listen to disco at a goddamn warehouse?
Come to the next one.
What is going on?
The next one might be here.
All right.
Maybe.
We'll
make it.
Let's talk about what's coming up. So obviously, your work hasn't stopped yet. You've got other projects that are coming up now. So can you give us some insight as to the next event that you're going to be inviting us to?
LA Opera, Drunken Devil.
Drunken Devil.
Yeah. So the next one is going to be on October 29th. Excuse me.
I'm just chugging beer, man. You got to.
Yeah.
It's called.
This whole podcast has been a series of us like turning our heads away
and trying not to like burp into the microphone.
Yeah, Matt's eyes are crossed right now, and he's like leaning in his chair. He's super
right now.
Shout out to Lagunitas. We haven't forgot you since the first Drunken Devil party.
Oh, absolutely
That's
not.
right, yeah.
We're gonna hit you guys up in a bit for the next one.
Disco music quietly playing in the background. This is a new common theme.
It's tentatively called the Witch's Ball. And essentially it is a occult / witch / pagan themed carnival warehouse party.
It's cool as fuck already.
Yeah. So we have a lot more performers. We have burlesque. We have magic. I just met a guy that does rad marionette performances.
Ooh, fuck yes.
So he's going to do some performances with marionettes.
Where'd you run into this cat?
I met him, actually hit him up because he does stuff at, Precinct and Fault Line. He worked there, and he does this cool show at the Bob Baker.
I wanted to go there so fucking bad. I want to drop acid and go there. Like,
absolutely. Well, I don't know. I want puppets coming into life.
Yeah,
that'd be fucking really scary.
That would be nuts. I know that they're dope because they have a Debs Milo mural on the side, and I'm like, okay, they're still hip.
They get it.
Yeah,
they're crazy. They're the oldest marionette theater in California, certainly.
They're like the only marionette theater I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've never seen another. Anyway, marionette tangent. We'll do another podcast exclusively.
Shout out to Matt Scott and his marionettes.
Cool.
And then I'm also working on a fire eater to throw in that mix, and of course have aerial acrobatics. So it's obviously going to have a performance element to it, but I'm theming this around the idea that back in medieval times all the way up to Salem, witches had these secret, these black mass gatherings where they had to hide and sort of not be seen or else they would be killed. And so the whole idea of this new show is that, reflective of this whole underground scene, like you're going to get your invite. Once you get a ticket, you'll get this invite and you'll be invited to this black mass, this gathering. You won't know where it is. And then once you arrive at the venue, you'll have to walk through this sort of haunted forest area with these witches. And then once you get to the end, you'll enter this warehouse area.
And all women have to try to be drowned, and if they don't drown, you set them on fire.
Yeah, exactly. And if you survive the fire, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
Then you're in.
That's really dope, though.
Yeah, and so we're going to have, obviously a staple of mine is having that performance, having your open bars. We're going to try and get some actual, craft cocktail, a program going on for this. I want to have food, which we haven't had before, and actually have, either a restaurant sponsor or a chef come in and make small bites, hors d'oeuvres for people.
Or a raw meat hanging from the wall.
Or raw meat. We can bring that. We can bring that back.
I like that. Walk through that.
Have tarot. Have we're Chris Bowen, the DJ, is going to be playing. Always. I love vinyl. That's the hippest and most pretentious thing I could say. But there's something amazing and authentic to that.
I appreciate that.
And so he's going to be.
You work at the LA Opera. You're allowed to say you love vinyl.
Yeah, so, right? Yeah.
I guess so. But he has.
It's very progressive for someone who works in the opera to like vinyl.
But he has he showed me his record collection once. He has old witchcraft rituals on vinyl and Vincent Price readings, and he's gonna sort of mix that into something, and so it's gonna be this sort of decadent night of evil, occultic hedonism.
That's awesome.
So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I miss Vincent Price.
Yeah,
there was a special characteristic to him. He could read the nutrition facts on a Subway menu, and it'd be something is up here.
Yeah,
I'm suspicious. Well, that's incredible to see the arc that you've gone through, as far as hanging meat in your dorm room to working with LA Opera and throwing events of the caliber that you're doing now. If you could go back and give yourself advice to young little Maddie, what would you suggest that he does or change or not do?
Keep it simple, stupid. I tried to do way too much in a short amount of time, and I didn't give myself the amount of growth that I needed. And this last year for Halloween, I really did bite off more than I could chew. Somehow I do believe that everything works out in the end, and so that's stressful. I basically lost everything, and I kind of hit rock bottom after that, and there was a lot of stress from that production. But if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have found myself where I am. But all that to say, if I had kept it simple, and even in the productions I do now, I have these giant ideas, and I wanted to do an underground supper club for this, but then I didn't realize that there's other costs associated with that, and I have to remind myself to always just keep it simple, make it as authentic and you as possible. And I think that's something that I've struggled with for the past 5 or 6 years, is making it something that I would enjoy and I would pay to go to. And so I would have told my younger self, just keep it simple. Make it something that you would pay for. Make it something that you would go to. Make it something that you would enjoy, instead of trying to make it for other people. Because when you make it for yourself and you keep it simple and you maintain the spirit of what you're trying to do, it becomes that if you build it, they will come scenario, and try to, instead of trying to force people to come. So that's what I've learned over the past few years. And I really would have told my younger self to just breathe and remember exactly why you're doing this. You're doing this for a creative satisfaction and a creative purpose, and you want to involve people in that and show that basically you want to be a host to your imagination. And you can't do that if you're running around like a headless chicken trying to do every little thing yourself. And trying to make it this huge elaborate thing. So that's, I guess, the advice.
I want to tack on a quick question to that, because I'm completely with you, and I've known that from experience, which is keeping it simple. You're more likely to set yourself up for success than if you try to overextend yourself, especially when you're trying to overextend yourself for what you think other people want. So let me ask you this. When you get into a situation where your ambitions are high, your ideation process leads you to a vision that is grand and perhaps beyond your scale, how do you trim it so that it's within your means and you're setting yourself up for success rather than failure? Because, I mean, I'm a stubborn person. I work with a lot of brilliant creatives who are also stubborn people. And sometimes it's like it has to be, we have to have an elephant in here who can read, who could do sign language with its fucking trunk. And like, that's my fucking vision. And like, get it done. You know what I mean? There's this kind of like Steve Jobs force field that everyone thinks they have where it's just going to happen. And it doesn't always pan out that way. So how do you trim your ideas to like real life size as opposed to overextending yourself?
I think you can sort of approach that in two ways. You can either look at exactly what is necessary, or you could look at exactly what is not essential. And that's what I sort of had to do for this disco party. You know, what do I absolutely need to make this go off the way I want it to? What don't I need? Do I need 3 fog machines back there? Or can I deal with one? I can probably deal with one. Do I need these LED lights to be shifting colors and doing projections of fire on the wall? That would be really cool. Or can I just deal with like pink and red light and a little bit of fog? I could probably just deal with pink and red light, a little bit of fog. I don't have the money to have. I'm not a theme park. I don't have a budget of Universal Studios, and I have to remind myself of that because once you get in your head, you're like invincible and you are going to create this badass thing, and then your budget's like, hey, no, you're not. And then also on the other side, it's like, what do I absolutely need? I need my Drunken Devil. I need my DJ. I need my performers. I need light, and I need booze. That's it. You know, and once you get those essentials, things will, they just happen. You know, my DJ I had him scheduled for 3 hours, and he went for 2 hours after the party ended, just at this after party, because he brought all the records he had. And like, it's sort of trusting that if you keep it simple and you just bring the essentials, everything else will work out for you.
Yeah, and you can wing it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll always be winging it. Like it's never gonna be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, even if I had $1 million budget, there would always be something that went wrong that I'd have to account for. It's
crazy to me that you're on your second or third, major production that you're putting on. That's like one of your tentpole events, let's say, and you've already learned that lesson. Because for me, it took so long. I've been running Think Tank for 6 years now, with Patrick for more than half of that, and there's something very important to be said about that. One of the lessons that I learned, and one of the ways I like to bring up what you just said, is that, for example, we did the show called Chilled Air, and what we wanted to build was this skate park that had a TV inside of one of the ramps of China Bank, and there was all these VHS tape camcorders that were all aimed in different directions throughout the little skate park in our gallery. And it was supposed to live feed through these analog video boards skaters as they skated across it. In the end, we couldn't do that last part, so it was just this like fucked up video art piece of one of our sponsors, like a skate video that S had made from way back in the day. But no one came through the gallery and skated it and said, "God damn it, this isn't replaying the trick I just did on this ramp." They were just like, "Holy shit, there's just TV inside that skate ramp." Yeah. So no one's gonna walk into your party and be like, "Why is there not 3 fog machines back here with lasers? It's just pink lights with 1 fog machine." No one's gonna say that.
Yeah. No one knows what's up in your head. Only you do, and that's, I think, the problem with being a creative type, is that you're your own biggest critic, and you have this vision, but it's going to be good. You just have to trust in the process, and you have to trust in the people that you work with. Yeah. And it turned out great.
Do you have a moment when you decide, like, okay, this is when I got to put this item on the chopping block, or this idea on the chopping block? And do you ever feel depressed, like right before an event is coming up, that you have to cut something out that you wanted in there?
No, because then I realize, wow, that saved me X amount of dollars or X amount of time. You know? And it normally happens the day before an event. or like a couple days before. And a lot of the times it happens about 20 minutes before the event. Like, oh my gosh, we don't have that. What do we do? Figure it out, put something over there, and then you grab the skate ramp and make a bar.
Isn't that how every production is?
Every production, and it's
people don't realize it, but every production's like that. You're just trying to pretend like you got it together.
It's really the
Like
worst. And people, like, I was running around doing stuff, then all of a sudden I looked down at my phone, and it was 8. And I looked up, and people were coming through, and I was like sweating. I hadn't changed. I was a mess, and people were coming in, and my monsters were scaring them. And I just stood back, and I was like, this is good. It started.
Yeah.
I'm not dead. Mm-hmm. The place isn't on fire. People have smiles on their faces. And look, they just got a drink. And now they're sitting. And now they're enjoying themselves. Done. You know?
Yeah.
It's just that you have to trust that the experience that you are providing is good. Again, it comes down to that confidence in your product.
It's been like 4 years of producing events here. I can't recall the last time where I was like showered and dressed.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Before those
Isn't
fucking
that crazy?
doors open. Mm-hmm. Every event,
time.
I'm like, people look at me like I stumbled in off the street.
Yep.
Like,
No, this is what happens. It's either like Patrick or myself or Forrest, who's our manager, and one of us figures out a way to go sneak into one of the bathrooms here and shower and comes out, and the other ones look at him like, you motherfucker, when'd you find a second? I'm usually the one who pulls it off.
Yeah.
But
and then I'm a close second. Like, I'll like pull out like an hour into the event because I'm like, I'm not about to look like this
and
on an event like this.
Right.
Yeah. PSA to our audiences: come say what's up at if the event started at 8:00, come say what's up at 9:30.
Yeah.
Like, don't come in right at.
Don't talk to me until I look
You're
fresh.
good.
Yeah. Don't talk to me until I look fresh because if I don't look fresh, I'm not done yet. I have plenty more work to do.
There's stuff to do.
Yeah. Even if you're the homiest of homies, just like have a drink, hang out, wait for me
Take a breath.
because I have got a minute to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got to have it for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to bring up? I did want to talk to you a little bit because I had a background myself in I had a marketing job at DeviantArt that I got fired from.
Oh, that's a story.
Yeah, it's a story. I'll tell it at some
That's a
point.
good one.
But I feel like marketing is a little bit different of a thing than you think it is when you start. Like, I got this job marketing at deviantart.com, and I'm like, holy shit, my dream job, I fucking have it. I dropped out of college for that job, actually. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being something way different than you think it is. Exciting still and fun still, but just something way different.
Yeah.
And you have you're lucky to have that knowledge going into starting your own thing because you've had the opportunity to do it for one of the biggest brands in music production in the world.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. So if you have any like closing statements on an area of expertise that you have in particular, that'd be nice. And then whatever other stuff that you want to talk about before we close this out.
Oh God. I don't know. Ask me a question.
I got a good question.
Yeah.
This is a question.
I'm really bad at like bringing topics up, so just ask me the question.
No, that's fine. I got a question that has been plaguing me for a while, which is we're getting into a transitionary stage of marketing where, let's say someone has a $1,000 budget, for example, right? Do you allocate any of that? This is kind of a two-part question. First of which, do you allocate any of that money to printing flyers, like hard copy flyers? Or have you gotten to the point where you're like, this is not effective?
That's a very well-led question.
That is, we printed flyers for the last 2 Drunken Devil events. I don't see any value in them necessarily if they're like dropped at shops or in stores. We do it for the opera often, or we have in past years, and we just sort of decided to scale it back. Because the amount of times that I've gone into a coffee shop or a gallery or a clothing store and I've seen a pile of our flyers the same height, are you actually going to go into a coffee shop and take a flyer? Like, are you? Or are you just going to get your coffee and leave?
I'd say the possibility is there, but honestly, it's been like 1 out of 100 flyers.
I think a poster that's on a window is maybe like 2% more effective. But
for me, I think that the value of a flyer is that there's something you can hold, and I'm old school in that way. I'm taking my notes here on a notebook while Patrick's got his computer out. He always mocks me for being an old man, but I think that there's some value in being able to hold something and have it. So I do appreciate that. And every once in a while I grab a flyer, but you're right, most of the time I don't.
I will say that they're effective if it's at an event or at like a con or some like a festival or something where there's
like
multiple vendors and you get handed something, or like at Art Walk and you come into the little Art Walk lounge. I did a Drunken Devil event, or I was advertising the disco party there, and a lot of people, we ran out of our flyers that I brought because people were actively taking them because I was putting it in their hands. So yes, it's effective that way, but if it's just dropped off at a store.
But don't you feel like when someone hands you a flyer and you're walking down the street, they're just saying like, hey, would you mind throwing this away for me?
Yeah, absolutely. But if you're like in a contained space and you have a table,
like you're there for that.
Yeah, exactly. And your shit set up, then it's cool.
Yeah, and I would say, like, let's say, for example, you're advertising for a music show where, like, band XYZ is playing, and you know for a fact that, like, at the Echo tomorrow, like, band XYZ's, like, doppelganger, basically, is playing a show there. Like, you could dish out, 500 flyers, have 300 go in the trash, and you got 200 that might be maybes, and, like, it's kind of half the battle.
Look at, like, 20 people that look it up, and then, like, 2 people.
Well, if you're like,
fall off is
I'll pick
steep.
up a flyer for like Desert Days or something because I'm like, oh shit, Desert Days, I forgot, and then you can see what the lineup is to be like, am I gonna go to this or not? Because you'll take it out of your notebook later or whatever and look at it to see.
Yeah.
So that's valuable. And the other place that flyers, I think, as we move forward, could be valuable is if there's some extra element of immersion where like that flyer itself can be activated in one way or another.
That's what you do. You have to have some sort of code on there. Also, if the flyer itself is a coupon, like use code blah 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 to get 20% off or whatever, that's effective because
free drink if you bring this flyer in.
You're giving them money. You're in a sense.
Yeah.
I'm of the camp when it comes to flyers, and my part 2 of that question still exists. But I'm of the camp when it comes to flyers that I would rather print almost like 50% less, target extremely well, and have those flyers just look fucking sexy.
Absolutely.
Like, feel sexy, look sexy. Like, pay for that extra fucking gloss or UV spot
heavy,
or whatever. Like,
shine.
I want to fucking have sex with this flyer. Like, I want it to look so good. Like, seriously.
Yeah,
like,
no, 100%.
And so the second part of that question is, let's say you have that $1,000 budget again, and let's say you're not worried about print, because a lot of people who are promoting right now, they don't really give a fuck about print. It's fine.
Wait, I have one exception before we move on. When sponsors are like, how many flyers are you producing? We had to produce 10,000 flyers for Break Bread as a part of our sponsorship agreement with Cirque du Soleil. So that is one instance in which you have like some old school. Yeah, Cirque du Soleil threw down some cash.
If they pay for it, fucking throw it on gold foil paper.
Yeah, but point is, we would have rather spent that money on something else.
It.
Oh, 100%.
But it was we were contractually obligated to hand out 10,000 flyers.
Totally.
Don't tell them I found a box recently, so we handed out like 9,500. But we came close.
Yeah,
that's fine. So part 2 of the question, you got $1,000. You're skipping print. How do you segment those funds? Like, where are you allocating?
Is it specifically marketing?
Yeah,
specifically in the marketing.
Yeah, and let's exempt the opera. Let's focus this specifically on Drunken Devil Productions.
So
a party event.
Sort of a new rule of thumb that I have for myself is don't even try advertising where you're going to get press, because then it's just a waste of money. Because if you're getting, people are much more likely to respond to editorial than to like a picture of your event in like the banner of the website.
And not only that, but it can also come across as unethical. We had that problem with Coffee Graph where we got a big like half-page ad or something, and we were like, why aren't you covering the show? You're our media sponsor. And they wouldn't do any editorial because they kind of couldn't, because it turns into pay-to-play.
Exactly.
So that's a good lesson to learn too, that I learned recently in PR.
So 100%, even if you can allocate a little bit of that budget into getting someone that is good at PR, do that, because PR, if it's good PR and good marketing, that's all you need. You don't necessarily even need to spend a whole lot on advertising or anything like that. And marketing is separate, I would say, from advertising. I think advertising is more of visual. You see it, you hear it. Marketing is really sort of more convincing people in ways, whether it's a promotion or a sale or something like that. But sort of allocating the money to get good PR, to get some good press, to get stories in, highly trafficked outlets.
Like?
LAist wrote an article about the disco party that we just did, and that as soon as that article came out, we saw a spike in tickets.
They crush it. We saw the same sort of results with Night on Broadway.
It was fantastic.
And also, LAist was one of our biggest draws for Break Bread.
Yeah, and they're into cool shit like that. Like they called me for an interview, and it was like a 20-minute talk, and cool. they put it in this most concise article, and it was fantastic. Them, Time Out. That's another one. Thrillist LA is another good one. Yep. Those are the three that I tend to like aggressively go after to try and get editorial, and luckily working at LA Opera, I know people at each one of those spots.
That's good.
For those listening, by the way, there are subdivisions of these exact same publications in different cities. So the LAist is the Gothamist in New York, and there's Time Out,
almost LA, New York, Chicago.
Right. So I don't think this
Thrillist.
is just LA specific. This is pretty broad across the entire U.S.
But then it goes back to what I was saying a while ago. Like, who are you looking to hit? Like, what is your target audience? As soon as you figure that out, everything gets 10 times easier. Because my audience is reading basically those three things. And then paying for social media advertising is like, it's a miracle. It's so great. It's so fantastic. It's cheap. It gets in front of a lot of people. And I wasn't a fan of it at first, but now this whole Facebook, Instagram integration with your ads it's a dream come true for people that have a smaller budget.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so on Facebook, when you place your ads, when you go into your ads manager, you create your ad, and then it'll give you an Instagram option. So you can list that same exact ad, and if people click on it, they get a link to your website or the event page. It's just like a Facebook ad, except on Instagram. So I've started seeing, it actually happened by mistake the first time because I didn't know it existed when I was doing a Drunken Devil event. And then I kept getting hits on our Instagram, like, oh, people are liking your post. People are liking your post. I don't know what that post is. It's the Instagram ad that I created on Facebook. And a lot of my traffic that when I was looking at our analytics, I saw that a lot of our traffic came from Instagram because that's like bigger than Facebook, bigger than Twitter. Like,
and you're not gonna miss it on a Facebook feed. It's like you're so inundated with everything, like news and links and fucking baby pictures, and then
your grandma arguing about all lives matter and.
Let's not get
and then you're on Instagram, and it's not, Facebook, from what I've noticed, because I keep track of our ads when we post, and I kind of see when it's showing up on my feed, and it's not every time. It's kind of just waiting for the right moment where it's like drops it in right there, and you're like, okay, now you're gonna maybe pay attention. As opposed to Instagram, where you're gonna scroll past this shit like 5 or 6 times if you're going through your feed every day.
And the new algorithm on Instagram, if you either follow Drunken Devil on Instagram, if you spent more than a few seconds looking at the ad and become a unique view, if you've liked it, then Drunken Devil starts getting funneled into your algorithm more. And that was kind of a curse at the beginning when they changed it, and I was like, I'm only getting 6 likes per picture, what's going on? And then just sort of you had to adjust to that and post more and get more attention on Instagram, and then it's suddenly I'm just getting flooded with stuff. So
man, every social media platform now is just confirmation bias central, man. They're all just pushing things in front of you that they know you want to see. It's nuts. It's a good thing, but it's also
it's fine
curse.
For me. It's terrible for me when I get home and just want to check out funny Game of Thrones videos, but recaps and shit like that, but not good. A really good when I'm trying to sell something.
So in summation, it seems like if you've got a chunk and change, whether it's 1,000 to up, I don't know how much good PR you can get for under 1,000, but
it's possible.
Allocate funds for PR is a big one. Facebook advertising with Instagram integration has been very great, and reaching out to folks, and this kind of ties into PR. But if you don't have a PR agent, trying your hand at trying to get a hold of folks like Time Out, your local. For us, it's LAist, whatever your city is, and
it's just pitching. It's really just pitching and sort of getting your story out. I guess a lot of it is PR, but then putting an appropriate spend behind social media. I think social media is the number one form of advertising and marketing now because everyone has a profile on Facebook, on Instagram. At least the people that you want coming to your events.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
cool.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing all this information.
Of course, absolutely.
I know there's a lot of people who, whether they're interested in, specifically haunt-related events or are just interested in kind of getting their try at throwing parties and events similar to yourself, I think this information is going to be really valuable. And we really appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Is there anywhere people should look you up, try to find you?
Oh, absolutely. You can just go to thedrunkendevil.com. Same on Facebook, Drunken Devil, and on Instagram, The Drunken Devil. All pretty uniform there. Cool. But a lot more is coming up in the next couple of weeks about our next event, and Halloween is really going to be... It's going to be crazy. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
And when do tickets go on sale for that?
They're going to go on sale mid-August, and our pre-sale will go through around mid-September, and then full price will go up. So
cool.
Right on. Well, we're looking forward to your invitations.
Yeah, you'll get one. I promise. I promise.
Everything you do and go to from now on. You can just carry us in a baby Bjorn. We'll
That's
just
fine. I'll
be
do
on
it.
your back.
I'll throw it in a sack and carry you in with me.
Awesome. I appreciate that. All right. Matt Dorado, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Real Talk. We recorded a bunch of episodes up front. We're probably going to be releasing another one every week or so. So please check back. Follow us on Instagram at ThinkTankDTLA. And please vote for us on iTunes. We'd love to show up on New and Noteworthy. It helps the podcast out a lot. We do have a big series of events coming up throughout the whole month of October called Trap House. You can see all that stuff at traphouse.la. Is that it? At traphouse.la. That's the Instagram. That's also the website. Go there and use promo code Real Talk to get $5 off the escape room tickets. There's a bunch of other events happening too, so please check them out. 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 So please check them out.